Well, welcome back to the show, everybody. In this video, we're going to be restoring this gas tank off a 1984 Honda ATC200X 3-wheeler. Yeah, let's take a look at the damage here. Yeah, it's a little bit rusty, but the seams and all the welds look good. The inside is absolutely catastrophic, but we'll show you that later on in the video here. But yeah, in the video, we're going to go through every trick I have in the book, and by the end of the video, this is going to be brand new, inside and out. And if you're a follower of the channel, you know that this is part of my 84 ATC200SX build, where I'm swapping that TRX 200SX engine into that ATC 200X frame. So I think if you're here just for the tank restoration, you can skip forward to this point. But I think for the viewers, I'm just going to walk around the shed here and kind of give everybody an update on the progress of this thing. Rebuilt the rear shock a couple weeks back. I still need to get either a shot of nitrogen or argon in there. Frame is all modified and painted up today. Turned out pretty sharp. Everything black is done. Still need to paint silver on a few things, but painting's going along very, very nicely. Engine, even though it's a little bit dusty right now, I'm just sitting in the shed. That is absolutely spectacular. The wheels, I ended up buying some new DWT rims for the back. The front, I sanded and polished and restored that, and that looks brand spanking new. So tires, engine, frame stuff. Now we're on to the tank. The tank isn't too bad. I know it looks like it's seen better days, but it is fairly solid. Some surface rust down here, but the welds look all really nice. The seams down at the bottom look good. And I'm not seeing any pinholes when I shine a light from the bottom. I'm not seeing any light come through the inside of the tank. So let's grab the scope cam here, shove it down inside the tank, and I'll show you how nasty this thing is on the inside. Yep, looking inside here, we are definitely going to have to roll this with some acid, some nuts and bolts inside there to get rid of all that crud, and definitely going to have to tank line it after we're all said and done. I think the first thing I'm going to do is sandblast the outside of the tank, get all the paint and rust off the outside. Mother of God, the Canadians are invading. Well, back to the game. And remember, earlier in the video when I said this was really solid, a really solid tank?
I lied.
Yeah, look at that. That thing was held together by paint, and that's it. I've got so many holes in this thing, I'm thinking about starting over with a more solid tank. Yeah. What kind of fun video would that make? Let's weld those holes up. Yeah, this, folks, is what we call an official poop show. But as long as we can get the whole tank liner, everything should be a-okay. This section right here, a little bit too big, a little bit too thin. I'm gonna have to cut a little patch out here and weld that in. Yeah, I don't want to try to fill that really thin stuff with just brass right there.
Really make that go a long way. We've got some aftermarket fenders, we've got some aftermarket scoops, flares. Let's not overlook this huge header down here.
Yeah, that is just gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. Well, I think it's time I'll take a flip it around, fill it up with water, and make sure it's at least holding water. Yeah, at that point, we'll start thinking about tumbling this thing. Well, I filled the tank up with water, and it holds water. Now we got to worry about tackling all that rusty crust out of the inside there. So what I'm going to do, got a bunch of little nuts and bolts here, and some citric acid that you can find in the food canning aisle at Walmart. I'm going to mix a little citric acid and water in there, dump the nuts and bolts in there, and we're going to go tumble this thing in the cement mixer. I need a quart of water in there, just enough to slosh around all the nuts and bolts. That should be fine. There's citric acid. Ooh, lemony. Ooh, really lemony. Wow. Nuts and bolts. I'm going to use nuts and bolts Make sure you're using steel, not stainless steel, because then they're gonna get stuck in there. You'll never be able to get them out with a magnet. Oh yeah, all kinds of scratchy goodness on there. Cool. Yeah, we'll let that spin like that. Then turn it 180 degrees, let it spin. Flip it 90 degrees, let it spin. Just keep letting it rattle and roll around until all the rust is gone. Okay, so it's been rolling with the tail facing this direction for about 20 minutes. I'm gonna flip her around and spin her that direction. It doesn't look like it's leaking any acid inside the wheel door, inside the cement mixer, so it's leaking around the cap a little bit. Not too bad though. Let's tumble. Now fast forward a little bit, we got the tank out of the cement mixer, all the rust rolled out of it, and after that all dried up, I rinsed it out with some degreaser and then soaked it with a 415 metal prep. Put a 415 tank liner in there. Didn't go through the whole process of recording it because I was kind of in a rush, but if you're interested in seeing how the 415 tank liner system works, 415's got a really good video right here, shows you how to do it. But yep, everything's all lined inside and sealed up. Now it's time for some body work. So this side is kind of crushed in a little bit right here. I smashed the dent out as good as I could before I de-rustified the inside, but there's still about anywhere from a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch of dent in there that I need to fill in today. So take a little guide coat, I'm going to spray it across the whole tank and then start block sanding, and then anything that's left black are my low spots. I need to know we're going to fill everything in with a little bit of fiberglass filler, especially in this section here, and then sand all that filler down, and we'll go from there. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, if you look right here, a couple low spots there, a little dingus there and there, and unfortunately, well, this line over here is really nice and straight, no dents here, 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 but right about here, that kind of pushed this body line out. So I'm going to smack that with a little bit of a hammer, beat that back in, and then we'll lay a little bit of body filler right there. Now that everything's sanded and I know where my low spots are, got this little scotch brite wheel, I'm going to clean all the metal up and then lay the bondo down. So fiberglass is all set up. Sand this down with some 40 grit, but I want to take this outside because it's going to get really dusty here. So I'll outside and I'll be right back. Brr, it's a little cold outside, but you can kind of see the dents are filled in with the fiberglass filler. I've got a lot of sanding left to do here. We'll break this all back down to bare metal and leave the filler just in the dents. And then once that's done, I'll use some regular bondo to skim coat that and get it nice and smooth. Well, the standard Bondo dried up. There are a couple little low spots still. Mix up a little bit more. Put some here and here. We'll sand everything down with 120 grit. And then we'll be ready for primer. There we go. The body filler is sanded down really nicely now. I'll wipe it off really clean, and then we'll put some 2K filler primer on here. Probably a couple really thick coats. We'll let that set up. Then we can start block sanding everything really, really smooth. Okay, we got a few coats of the filler primer on. Things are looking really, really smooth. Yep, can't even tell there's any filler underneath there. Got one run right there because I had the tank hanging down like that. Oh well, no biggie. That will sand out just fine. But yeah, we'll let this set up overnight. We'll come back, we'll block sand this. So now I'm getting into the block sanding a little bit. I coated the entire tank with this guide coat black. It's like a black film across the entire thing, and I'm starting to block sand everything away. I've got a foam sanding block and some 400 grit paper. Basically doing kind of like a crosshatch sanding job on there. And this is actually turning out fantastic. I'm starting to break through the primer there and there, so we're going to stop. But yeah, if you remember at the beginning of the video, this is all dented in, but now it is perfectly smooth. So, I think I'll just continue sanding on this side. Yeah, you can definitely see the air bubbles in the filler there, but that will eventually all start to fill away, or sand away. Yeah, you can see a halo here, here from the filler. Yep, the goal is to sand away all that guide coat until everything is perfectly gray. So with the little sanding I did, you can kind of see low spot there, low spot there, low spot in our filler there, and high right along the edge. So as I'm sanding, I'm going to stay away from this edge a little bit and just keep doing this until everything's smooth. We'll get there eventually. Well, there we go. You can see I'm almost breaking back down the primer into the Bondo below, so we're going to stop there and call that good enough. Yep, just finish block sanding the rest of the top part here. Scotch brite back here. Then we're ready for some paint. Oh, nice, nice, nice. This thing is definitely cleaned up far beyond what it needs to be. This is going to look so spectacular when it's all said and done. Yeah, I'll Scotch brite the whole thing down, some of the areas where I couldn't sand, and I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to go paint the bottom of this thing tonight. Let it sit up overnight. Well, the tank is white again, and everything looks pretty fantastic. But one problem, I sandblasted this tank, brought it back down to bare metal. There must have been just a little nook of sand left over in there. So if you look, hope it'll show up in camera. I've got sand all over the top of the tank here and right here. So even though I thought I cleaned everything out with an air gun, there must have been a little bit of sand there, and when I was blowing paint, it shot sand in the paint. But don't worry, this is not the end of the world. Once this sets up, I will wet sand this with some 1200 and 1500 grit sandpaper, and then we'll buff it smooth, and you'll never even know that sand was there. Well, the paint is dried up. Now we're going to do a little bit of wet sanding on it and knock that sandblasting sand out of there. No big deal. We'll just keep sanding away here very lightly with some 1200 grit. Stay away from my sharp edges, areas like that. Just enough to get the sand out of it. Then we'll buff it back to a shiny finish when we're all said and done. Yeah, definitely got the sand out. Yeah, there's no orange peel in the paint. I laid it down really smooth. A little bit of a spot right there. All right, wet sanding is done. Now it's time to buff it with some heavy-duty rubbing compound. Give it a little bit of this. Knock that back down to a shine, and then we'll use a lighter compound and then our polishing compound right at the end. And we'll be done with the paint. Now a little bit of polish, finish it off. Be ready to put some stickers on this thing. Woo, mama, does that look perfect? Wow, just amazing. Oh yeah, fantastic. Now it's time for some decals. That's so cool. Yep, that is absolutely stunning looking. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Graphics are really, really nice. Now I got the brand new Meyer Super Scoops. Finished everything off with that. This is just going to be lovely, lovely, lovely. Well, folks, what do you think? I think it turned out absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, I think we're getting to the time where we're ready to put this on the frame. We'll get the 200SX engine in there, get the fancy new shiny rims on there, and we'll start putting this thing back together. But that's going to come at a later video because I'm out of time this week. But if you want to keep up on Project Auto X, yeah, click on this video over here, or I think you're really going to like the video over there. And be sure to leave a like on the way out, and I'm going to see you next time.